This session is called Exploring the Creative Possibilities of Virtual Real-Time AR and XR. Our speakers are as follows. From the far left-hand side, Ben Wickham is Director of Creative Output at Sky Sports. John Murphy, Design Director at BBC Sport. Alex Dinnin is Director of Graphics and Innovation at Warner Brothers Discovery Sports. And Yavos, I'm not going to embarrass myself or him by trying to pronounce his surname. He's Head of Sales at Zero Density. Yavos, thank you very much for jumping in at the last minute. Your CEO had a personal emergency he couldn't attend to. So thank you, Yavos, for joining us today. The session goals are as follows. We're going to share some insight into recent projects. We're going to identify some challenges, some lessons learned, and some success stories. We're going to discuss some potential solutions and creative possibilities. And we're hopefully going to define some areas for future progression and development, which sounds a bit more serious than it was meant to when I wrote it down. Right, we're going to start. We're going to start with Ben from Sky Sports. We're going to talk about their Monday Night Football studio, which regular listeners will know is not just for Monday Night Football, but also if you're interested in VG events, we've talked about it a few more times. If we can have the sizzle on while we talk about it. Ben, tell us a little bit more about Studio 4.
Thank you, Will. So this is actually about, I think it's about a year old now, so it feels really old, but hopefully most people have seen what we've been doing. What we're trying to do in Studio 4 is as much as we possibly can to get the return on the investment that we put into Studio 4 at the moment. So we built it as a kind of, as a multi-use studio. We always knew it was going to be the M&F studio. We always knew it's going to be very, very powerful in terms of the data that it told, in terms of the things that you can do with it, the way you can use it for analysis. We can bring people in, but it was. I'll say this a lot probably in this. It was always designed to be a space where talent, pundits, presenters could feel very comfortable and at home to kind of use the data the analysis that we can do. But also somewhere that the viewer felt very comfortable seeing as well. So as you can see, it's a very kind of open, multi-use space. We can kind of move things around. The Sky News team literally came in and kicked the sports team out and to create their election set. We use it in a multitude of different ways. It's been the election, it's been Monday Night Football, we've done NFL, we did the US Open. It's AR, XR, VR. It does all the things. And the idea is that the program makers could come in, they can look at what they've got, they can look at the screens, they can look at the AR, they can kind of go, how do we do this? We can do these kind of takeovers that the entertainment team love, where we have kind of these big kind of entertainment properties that we want to kind of like push to our sports viewers, and create these really amazing little kind of moments to really show off what we're doing. And also, I think Saturday Night Football is a great example of not just the kind of things that we can do with data, but also the kind of fun you can have in the studio. There's a thing here about, when it was the EFL, the seven-header challenge. So it's designed to kind of integrate the data and the storytelling into a really, really fun space. Predominantly LED. There's an LED floor. Yep. Tell us about what's in there. So there's no green screen. There's no green screen. So it's all LED. Again, the idea, the theory behind it was that you can go in, you can see what you're doing, right? So you can hit Thierry Henry, you can come in and you can start looking at things, and you can do the analysis. You can look at the floor. It does things. It feels kinetic. It feels like you're there. Well, you are there, clearly. Not always the case, obviously, but everywhere we give it a kind of sense of expansion, sense of space by having the kind of the VR around it, the canopy that we have. We have what we all call the fourth wall, so you can spin the cameras around and look at where the cameras are, and the studio is kind of continuous, which has a kind of VR space, so we can create things in that space. But the idea is everything that the pundits and the talent and the presenters look at is there. Therefore, it just feels like a very natural space. Therefore, it feels like a very natural space for the viewer. Thank you. The next clip is some AR examples. So obviously they can't see that part. They can't see that, but there are markers on the floor there that Dave's looking at. So he's very aware of that. So again, it's very clear to the viewer what's happening. To the presenters and the pundits what's happening there. Again, the idea being that and maybe I'll say this a lot, is integrating that the graphics and the data and the storytelling, so it doesn't feel like you're just you're putting it in. We were saying in the previous talk, you're not just putting it in for the sake of putting it in. You're putting it in because it feels relevant and it feels part of the production. The next clip will be about those takeovers, I think, as well. So what are you doing with the takeovers? So this is, I mean, the entertainment team love us for this because we've got so much kind of power in the studio. what we're trying to do is really, like, when we have those big audiences that tune in for the Monday, usually it's Monday Night Football, but we've done it in other places as well. And these big entertainment shows we have, like Last of Us and we did a few of these. I'm trying to remember which ones they are. Day of the Jackal was another one. But we can really kind of turn that studio into something different and kind of really seamlessly mix between the sports content and the entertainment content, and really kind of drive those moments home that Sky likes to make. That when the whole business kind of surrounds one moment, like a Last of Us season finale or whatever, and we can just push those into the sports really seamlessly without it feeling like a kind of like clunky, like here's an advert, here's a promo. And this is probably one of our favourite ones, when the Day of the Jackal, because we're always looking for I can't remember what the line Dave's saying there. It's something like, there's a shootout on, in the North London Derby or something, whatever it was, some also awful cheesy line, but again, trying to make it feel authentic to the audience that are watching, and make sure that we're driving the viewers to that kind of moment that Sky wants to represent. And as you can see, the studio allows us to do this amazing takeover and then flick straight back into sports content, and it just feels really seamless and really comfortable for the viewer.
And they work, right?
They do work.
I always wonder why I'm getting told about dramas when I'm watching the football. I'm interested to know.
They work, right? Because it's all about the thing that Sky can do really well is cross promote, right? So we want to make sure that when we've got those big audiences and they feel like the right audience to be cross promoting, they work. I'm laughing because I know I've got Regan in the audience here somewhere from our technical team. The technology doesn't always work.
And we're going to come to that in a bit.
But yeah, it does. It usually looks well. It's all right on the night.
Yeah, good. That's what you've been doing thus far.
Yep.
Where's that studio going next? I think we've got some things. Oh, hello.
Oh, we've got some echo.
I think we've got some visuals we can show how this might be going next. Right. This is very exclusive, everybody.
It's very exclusive. Don't tell anyone. So one of the things that we're doing. We've got like a summer upgrade program of this. We always built headroom into the studio, and we always knew there was more things we could do with it. So we're looking at ways that there's a boring story about in terms of operational efficiencies, and there's a more fun story in terms of things like virtual windows, and this is the development of stuff we've done before, but it's basically starting to create a really massive environment and really play around with those spaces and really kind of integrate all of them. And that we found that XR pathway is actually quite challenging, and it's taken us quite a while to understand it, and we're putting the things in place now to kind of try and really drive that a bit more and do this kind of thing. And really kind of make the studio really sing. Has
something moved on since the studio was inaugurated to allow this to happen? Or is it you that's moved on to allow it to happen? Do you see what I mean?
A bit of both, I'd say. A bit of both. We've got more used to it. We understand it a bit more. We understand the processing. We've invested in the pipeline. We've upgraded the Unreal. We're looking at the way the Viz works with it. I think it's a bit of everything, right? We have worked out how to make this do like things like this virtual window that we're trying to do. We couldn't have done before, right? We had to buy technology to make that happen, and we didn't get there in phase one. But more to the point is, as we understand the possibilities of it, we start to link them all together, and then the creative and the kind of production and the technical pathways start to kind of sing together.
Thank you. We'll move on to John in a second, but I'm going to ask each of the three broadcasters this question. What's the setup inside Sky? Are you outsourcing any of this? Is it all in-house development designers?
It's mainly in-house.
In-house.
We have a very extensive... We have a great... I have to say this right, because we have a great technical team. We have a really strong developed technical team who understand these things. We want to be very kind of product agnostic as much as possible. Like we're largely a Viz house. But we want to make sure that we're using the technologies as well as we can. We do look to go external for certain projects, but generally we kind of try and pull it all together ourselves. Great,
thank you, Ben. We're going to skip the very last promo, which is a Jamie Carragher thing, which has some AR balls in. We didn't need to see that. We're going to move on to John Murphy. John, before you tell us about the projects, again, to relate to what Ben said, what's the BBC setup? Are you in-house? Are you external? How do you do things?
So thanks, Will. Basically, the setup is that we're a very small team in terms of design team in BBC. So when we have two studios, we have our own small studio in Media City, an 84 metre squared green screen, effectively. And then we have, obviously, a bigger studio in Docktown, which we have Match of the Day and everything from now. What we have to do is, when it's our own studio, and it's kind of, we've done things like Winter Olympics and things like that from there, but generally, maybe more lower tier kind of events, we can kind of facilitate that ourselves most of the time. But when we go to major events and we do bigger projects, we have to, our graphic suppliers, we have a tech team as well, but obviously that, if it's at an OB, then we're relying on kind of the OB providers and all that as well for the tech side of it. So it's kind of scaled like that, really. But yeah, we're a small team, so we can't facilitate the bigger events ourselves.
Thank you. Let's see quickly the sizzle from Euro 2024.
Taking a big risk there.
So, John, tell us about that setup, because that's on location, that's extended, that's LED, that's Germany. And we can show, actually, Rook, sorry, if we can show the second video while John's talking, that'd be great.
The summer we had was quite unique. We obviously had Euros and we had Olympics, and we were on location both in Berlin and in Paris for the Olympics. So from a creative angle, I've got to be honest, when we can blend the real and the virtual and the XR, I personally think it's great. And also it's a bit easier because you've got something to start from. You've got the Brandenburg Gate in the background, and then it's what you do then to kind of create another world outside of that. So for Berlin, we had 2 studios. We had an indoor studio and we had a terrace. I wouldn't say that we luckily got 2 studios, but I don't think we'll ever have 2 studios again. And the beauty of it was that some of the things that we did kind of end up driving the editorial. So the indoor studio, we generally realized, because we were doing an LED floor on the terrace and we had LED walls on the inside studio, what we decided was daytime was very much, and it was very hot in Berlin. Daytime was very much going to be the indoor studio, where you could do a lot more around with AR and really set that kind of that tone of the program up. The terrace obviously came alive at nighttime, and obviously, daytime with the terrace anyway, the LED floor, you're not going to really see much because of the sun. So the terrace at nighttime was really great, and what that meant was we actually had AR to play with on the terrace as well, but we quickly realized that actually it was just beautiful not having anything after the first few programs, and it changed the actual vibe of, so the nighttime, the talent would sit there on the terrace, and it felt more like a kind of almost like a podcast chat, and it was the end of the day. It was all the matches had been gone through the day, so the whole kind of vibe and how we used it did change kind of as we were going through. The beauty of the inside was that one funny story was David Moyes kind of 2 days, came 2-3 days into the event, and he walked in the inside studio and he just went, "Where's the rest of it?" He literally thought there was a museum that he was going to be sitting in, which is great, isn't it? But I think the thing is with that was that what Ben's just been saying there with their studio, which is it's fantastic, and that's a kind of a inside studio, and you can do all the data stuff, and it's really set up for that. I think with Berlin, it was very much more about just the visual aesthetic, being completely honest, and it was just about kind of how do you sort of create that history of where you are and help the story, and also just things like we don't do this kind of thing to please social media, and I don't generally follow social media, but the beauty that comes out of it is that the people who do follow it going, "Oh my, there's so many people just on social media saying, are we in Berlin?" No, people saying, "No, we're in Salford, we're in a green screen in Salford." It just really kind of, it helped with that whole editorial narrative around social media. So that's the beauty of it. But as I say, I think it was our first foray into the kind of XR in LED, which has only got me wanting more of it.
Of course.
And I want to kind of now move out of green screen. But there's lots of things that come into play with that. but that's definitely on our radar to kind of, because that whole thing, as we talked about, is that I know they weren't really interacting with it, but just the fact that it's physically there, talent a lot more comfortable with it. You're not telling talent what they can and can't wear, which never goes down too well anyway. And just that, and so, and also, look, you know, as with zero density in our match of the day studio, fantastic. I mean, you know, the keying and everything else, we all, you know, we however many years ago, 7, 8 years ago now, when kind of the water bottle and the software keying came into play, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And that still, listen, that still has an absolute value, absolutely. But yeah, certainly a drive from us would be to kind of start to move into the LED world more.
Fantastic. We're going to come on to some challenges with LED again, more specifically later. We'll skip the Olympics videos. I'm conscious I want to get to the meat of this. Alex, we've got a couple of videos for you as well. Let's, I think we'll play the first one, which is the Champions League clip, please.
Evening. I hope you've got your popcorn ready. This will be a night like no other in European football. 18 Champions League games, all kicking off at the same time. What a finale we have in store. Here then is the all-important table as it stands right now, although it will change constantly as the night unfolds.
I've gone for some, I don't mind putting out there, I've gone for 68.
It's one of those nights where everybody wants to know what else is going on across the corridor in the studios at TNT Sports. Lindsay Hipgrave as Joe Cole and Peter Crouch for company.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Matt. Well, on a slot side of cruise through with 7 wins out of 7. But
Jules Beach will be covering that game.
It's a straightforward night, you'd assume, for Arsenal this evening.
Grab a quick word with Rio Ferdinand, who's watching on the gantry next to Darren and Robbie. Everything changes in a moment, Rio.
Yeah, I mean, this second half they've come out, the pep talk at half-time from Pep must have been a rocket because they've come out a totally different team.
At the end of a tumultuous, exactly as we thought, this is the full story of the 18-game roller coaster.
So, Alex, tell us a little bit about that. What you did, what the AR, what the extended. Tell us a bit more.
It was a crazy night of football. You know, we had 18 live matches being fed in. We've been doing this Goal Show Extra, you know, throughout the Champions League group stages, all building up to this, you know, this last game. And while it's, you know, it's not particularly complicated, you know, XR wise, we're in our Curve studio, you know, it's an XR studio. The complication around just getting the 18 games in, we used the other 2 studios, studios A and B, which are green screen studios, which are representing the live matches from. Being able to cross over, but then also being able to cross over to the grounds. We had Comcams, you know, all this had to be fed into the gallery, and you know, being fed in, you know, as quickly as possible, and so we could, you know, talk across all 18 games, and then obviously with, you know, with AR graphics to back everything up. It was a fun night, but yeah, quite hard work.
The second clip is from a cycling race. Is it the Tour de France?
No, Paris-Roubaix.
Thank you. Just show that as well. This is a good use of how AR can be used in a storytelling context.
I'm going to show you how that works. You can see the peloton just coming up next to me here, and we're going to look at the riders in the red. The one closest to us, I'm going to say he's in about 3 riders back. It looks like he's in a good position at the minute. The guy in the middle, he's about, in the red obviously, he's about 5th position, so it looks fine at the minute. In any normal race, this would be a great position to be in. As they get onto the cobbles, riders squeezing past each other, battling each other, pushing each other, elbowing each other. And as they get onto the cobbles, as I said, you can see how far they've drifted back and not in the middle, so they're on each side of the cobblestones, near the barriers, near the fans, near the crowds leaning over. There's so many elements of danger with where they are. And the ultimate thing is, if you're that far back, you've got to make up that speed. The entrance into the Arenberg and the first 400 metres of it is slightly downhill. It does drag up after that, but if you're in the first couple of positions, you can carry that speed.
So how was that done, and what's that telling the viewer?
So this came from our cycling producer, who's mad on cycling. He absolutely loves the Paris-Roubaix. The Arenberg, this is the entry where they go literally flying downhill at some rate of knots, I can't remember. And then literally, as they go in, they ply in, and since we've been doing cycling on Eurosport and TNT, he's always wanting to do a piece about this. And we sat down, we worked out how we were going to do it. And this was done in our old Cube studio. It's a couple of years old, but it's a great way of of how we can do things. How you can tell a story. So we basically use a 3D. So the cameras on Adam, the presenter. The real camera moves away. The 3D camera takes over and then can fly above, and you can see above. Obviously Adam's still where he is, but the 3D camera's looking away in the virtual world. Have the animation happening. He's still telling the story, and then the 3D camera moves back to another position. The real camera takes over and brings Adam back into shot. I mean, that was only done, in our old Cube studio. It was like 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters. And he doesn't move. Obviously, it just changes his position. But it was a really, really good way of being able to use AR in storytelling. It's these are the sort of things I love doing. Yeah. How to tackle a problem and how to explain a story.
Well, that gives a layperson like myself who knows nothing about cycling an understanding of how the guy went from 5th to 12th.
Yeah.
In a very simple form, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
complicated to do, but simple on screen.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're going to get to in AR in a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yavuz, I was going to see your show reel if you don't mind, and you can tell us a bit about some of the projects on the screen.
Sports broadcasting is evolving. At Zero Density, we're redefining how broadcasters deliver a new level of storytelling in sports coverage using virtual studios, augmented reality, extended reality, and on-air graphics. Meet Lino, broadcast graphics production with template-based content creation and control solution for on-air graphics, video walls, bumpers, virtual studio, and AR, all using Unreal Engine. Simplify operations and increase efficiency while empowering your teams to deliver stunning real-time visuals with more speed and impact than ever before. Imagine next.
Just give us a quick insight into some of those projects, Yavuz, if you can.
Okay. So first of all, let me explain what we are doing with this video. This is a demo from NAB 2025. The product that we are using here is our new product, which is called Dino, which is template-based broadcast graphics solution. And it is just one platform to manage operate your 2D and 3D graphics. So what we see in the market as a use case is that we see now the broadcasters mostly tend to use hybrid setups. So like LED or green all together. And while doing this, they prefer to create and build immersive virtual studios by blending virtual elements with the real objects to create higher quality. And at the same time, they are doing real-time data integration to show live stats and overlay tactics. And of course, we have some examples for that. One of the recent projects is from France. Our partner in France made a production for a 24 hours of race, car race. And while doing this production, they adapted sponsor-branded dynamic AR graphics with the environment conditions and the race conditions. So by doing this, they had the chance to increase their revenue, also increase the viewer engagement. On top, I can name 2 sports clubs from Europe, like Fiorentina TV and Benfica. They are utilizing our system to enhance their TV channels to increase their, let's say, capabilities for the production, and at the same time increase their fan engagement. And we are also proud to see that Premier League productions and BBC is using our system for their virtual productions, and while maintaining their editorial integrity and pushing the creative boundaries. So it is amazing to see what they are doing with our system for the last 7-8 years. And we are also thankful to our partners who supported our customers like Elite and Duck10. So we have, I think, a very good ecosystem which we created through these years.
Thank you very much. Right, guys, as with the last session, I'm going to come and ask questions from the audience as part of this next part of the session. The only change is I will come to you with a microphone so that we can capture the audio for the recording, which I forgot to do with the first session. Or my colleague Rux will bring a microphone to you if I cannot reach you. We're going to start with some of the operational logistical changes and prep we need for some of these projects. Feel free to put your hand up as we're talking and we'll bring you in. Ben, as you're nearest, these things don't happen by magic. You don't click your fingers and the studio arrives. What have you had to do internally, and what prep systems? And does everything talk to each other? Tell me a bit about the operational side of some of these of your studio.
Does everything or everyone talk to each other?
Bit of both.
So someone once said to me, one of the biggest challenges Sky always faces is volume. So we want to run a lot of content through our studios. And when we're trying to iterate and create new things for new programs and change things that are in existing programs, I think one of the things that we've really had to learn really fast, and it caught us out, to be blunt, early. It's like the difficult second album. When we were creating Monday Night Football for the first output, it was great. You had all the time in the world, and then suddenly you want to do NFL and you want to do tennis and you want to do something. You know, what we've learned is the creative, the technical, and the production teams have to really, really, really be in sync. You know, we have to kind of have a really, really clear brief. We have to work out what sort of tier production we're doing in terms of our internal tiering. We have to work out what crew we need for that. We have to work out if we can get that crew. We have to work out what the rehearsal period looks like, what the integration period looks like. If the technical side is there, do we need to do any improvements? And all of that has to happen really fast, because then you have to kind of work out, because the next thing will be on the tracks, right? So the next thing will be coming down the line. So you have to kind of work out, okay, how do we do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? And every time you fire that studio up, you need a load of people to turn it on, so that costs money. So trying to work out the operational efficiencies whilst creating new and exciting content is really difficult, because you can't just keep throwing money at it. So we've had to get really, really efficient at understanding what the ask is, and then making sure everyone is talking together, and we put that on a timeline really quickly. And I think the other thing as well, we've really kind of lent into the TE role, the technical events engineer, like having a really highly skilled team of people that understand that understand the tracking, understand the AR, understand all the ways that studio works, so that they can kind of in real time, day on day, kind of troubleshoot that. And that's been a really important, I wouldn't say change for us, but that role has become super important, whether it's on an OB or whether it's in the studio. But just to make sure that we very quickly understand the challenges and address them, rather than just kind of go in and go, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we did this thing over here, and maybe we'll spend a day looking at that. Like, no, we need a clear brief. We need to work out the timeline, and we need to put it in, because the next one will be on the tracks before you know it.
What haven't you solved yet, would you say?
What haven't we solved? We are. I think it's fair to say. So we're pretty good at the AR. We're pretty good at the VR. We're pretty good at the LED. We deliberately spec that studio really well. The next evolution is the kind of proper XR, the kind of the virtual windows that really kind of open, like you've seen that kind of previs we did. The color pathway is really difficult when you start looking at HDR. We want to kind of really push the whole HDR thing, and that it's very difficult. All of the things work on their own, but when you start trying to put them together and make them work as a unit, it gets very complicated very fast. We have a great technical team who are kind of working on it, but that's complicated for us, and that's almost like that's the next stage for us.
Is that interoperability between systems?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's all things that are designed to work. Like, for example, something like Ghost Frame, we're struggling a little bit with getting Ghost Frame working, because the cameras work brilliantly. They're great HDR cameras, but do they have the kind of range that we need to do Ghost Frame on them? Maybe not. So we don't really want to rebuy all our camera systems. So there are, when you start trying, it's interoperability in the sense that if we were a house that said, right, could you just buy all this for us and do it from scratch, it would work. But because we're trying to kind of like effectively build it ourselves, it means that we hit roadblocks and we hit challenges.
Do these challenges resonate? Anybody in the audience got a thought? Philip, wait a second while I come to you with the microphone.
Ben, you've talked about everyone being involved and the team being across it. How much influence has the talent had on the design of the studio, and how are you thinking about how Carragher is going to be when he's on there live? Are those guys having a big input into it? Do they have any say at all, or is it just look, we've got something shiny in you?
No, so it's a key. It's a real thing of mine to kind of make sure that everyone is involved, especially the people using it, right? So I always tell this story. Gary Neville came in and wanted us to move one of the external walls when he first saw the studio. I was a bit like, that's a bit too far. But we definitely had Nev and Karen to kind of look at it when we first did it. Listen, to be blunt, one of the driving forces behind that studio was to kind of, because we knew that we've got athletes in, we've got people like Kara who are really kind of effervescent, and J-Bell on the NFL as well is another good example. So they have input. I think what we've tried to do with all of our studios, not just that, we do it in sports news as well, is kind of create studios where there are lots of different things that you can use. There are LEDs, there is AR, there are sofas, there are desks, there are touch screens, and effectively say to the program teams who work very closely with the talent, what is the story you want to tell? How do you want to tell it? And we'll put all the tools in to tell it. So I'd say the talent have an input via the programming teams, but on a slightly more zoomed out level, the point of that studio is to make it feel comfortable for the talent.
John, tell us about your challenges in getting some of these things operational.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, so a little bit like what Ben said. I mean, I think there's two things to this. I mean, obviously the Summer Berlin and Olympics are one thing. I mean, that's kind of, you're talking budgets, scaling budgets, and obviously length of time in terms of planning, and all of that. I think the business side of it comes back in when we've, again, into our own studio. And I think when we started our green screen, our own one, not the one in Dock 10, but maybe, our own green screen 5-6 years ago, initially, senior management, what a great business case this is. We can change our studio, depending on the event, and we're not sitting in the same physical set, and this is fantastic. Obviously, a couple of years down the line, now it's a case of, well, actually, it's quite expensive to do this each time. There's too many people involved. So that is a challenge. That's one of the things that, we talk about, kind of the shiny toys and what we can do with tech and everything else, but actually how we can start to operate it more efficiently with less people in terms of hands-on, if you like. And obviously, so what we do at the moment in there is we have a templated studio from a creative point of view, and then obviously if we have a bigger event, we can maybe, but the templated studio gets used a lot more. And then, but if you're doing that, you're kind of like, well, actually, if it's the same virtual studio across many things, then it's not really serving its purpose, because the beauty of it is that you can change it. So it's that efficiency bit that we're really looking at the moment. It's so, and look, at the end of the day, and even going back to the summer events and the OBs, it is, again, it's that thing of the tech is great, but can it just be a bit easier?
So luckily we have a member of the vendor community. You have us.
Yes.
How can we make this easier for John?
Okay, first of all, it is one of our job. We have more than 300 TV broadcasters. They are using our system for more than thousands of productions daily. So our job is to provide them working solution, because their job is not to deal with the technical problems. Their focus should be the creativity, and this is what we are doing daily. And yes, we are right with the challenges, and the challenges doesn't stem just from the software, but also it stems from the hardware, tracking, all the environment, and that is very crucial to have the alignment within the team, so which will help. On the other hand, there are some developments in the market which will be making the life easier for the designers, like Epic introduced motion design. So in the past, it was taking weeks to create a design. Now it can take just in, let's say, a few minutes. There are some AI applications, generative AI applications for again design. And even we see that there are some AI developments for the operational. So yes, there had been a lot of development, and for the future, we see more is coming. Yeah.
Anybody from the audience got a question about efficiency, operations? It's the sexy stuff, this, guys.
Just to jump.
Of course you can.
Very quickly jump in. I think one of my team said it really well to me yesterday, and this is a direct plea to vendors. It's almost like you can have a go-kart and it will always work, and you can drive it and it's fine, but it's a go-kart. Or you can have a Formula 1 car which takes 400 people to get started, and it's brilliant and it's incredible, but you don't want 400 people every time you want to use it. Like we want something that works, that's 80% as good as a Formula 1 car, but works all the time. So the thing that we want vendors to help us to do is to kind of like get the most out of our technology. Like we know it can do, we know we can shoot for the moon, but we kind of don't want to do that every time. We want to make sure that we're getting most of that really efficiently and fast. So effectively that's our plea from Sky, is to get that using the technology better.
And how do we do that then? Is that just having more? Sorry, Kevin, I'll come to you in a second. Is that just having more conversations? I mean, how does
it's more conversations, but it's also things like like we're moving we're moving into a kind of into more MOS objects and Pilot Edge and away from kind of Trio. Like we're trying to the A word, right? We're trying to automate more. We're trying to make sure that we are the things that we know we can do well. That to John's point, like we don't want it to get so kind of vanilla that actually it all looks the same, but we want to make sure that the complexity is still there, but we can automate some of that more so we can drive it harder.
Thank you. Kevin Fitzgerald in the audience.
Sorry, Ben, sorry, I think you might have just sort of answered my question.
Yeah.
It was really about getting the most out of your installation, your system. How quickly and what level of technology is needed if you want to change from news or election in one moment, sports at the other? How long does that take typically? It can be very complicated.
It can be. I mean, going back to the Last of Us and the Day of the Jackal, right? That breaks our studio every time because we build it in a slightly different way and we can't flick between them, so we can't actually do it very easily in Monday Night Football. But like, if you know the thing with automation is if you know what you're doing in advance, you can build that timeline. So we could flip like that every time. But if we decide to do an election and build it, and then don't decide that it has to work with the Monday Night Football studio and with the kind of thing, so and that exponentially gets complicated because if we want everything to work with everything else, we have to build some massive kind of master template. That is a challenge that would be lovely to solve. But it's all about knowing. Again, it goes back to the efficiency. It's knowing what we want to do, having the brief, and then we can build it in. And I think that's for us to almost to go back to the vendors and say, these are the things we want it to do.
It's about planning.
Can we build for it?
No, I'm just coming out in a sweat thinking now if we had to flip between BBC News and sport, I don't know. I'm just sorry.
We went from the Australian Open, which finished at 3:00 in the afternoon, to the Champions League goal show in the same studio, which started at sort of 7:00. And the whole Unreal side, the Sky side, was really quick. You just, you flick a switch, you load a new scene, and there you go. It was more getting all the feeds in, and diverting all the feeds. We're using the same gallery, so diverting, all the Australian Open feeds, and then bringing in the Champions League feeds, which was the complication.
Yeah, I think just on a bit of detail as well around kind of the challenges and stuff as well. There's lots of them and making things easier. But even one thing is that from a creative point of view, you have Epic kind of going, oh, look at our new version of Unreal.
Yeah.
You can do this and look at the lighting and look at all this and oh, fantastic. And you go to your tech team and oh, we just want to upgrade to Unreal 5.5, whatever it is, and they're like, well, we can't do that.
It's on the roadmap.
It's on the roadmap. So I think even just little things like that are just challenging.
That's
in
really
our
hard
sector.
as well when producers see that as well.
And
producer comes in, have you seen these megalights? It's like,
The Unreal thing is actually, I think it's probably worth calling out, right? Because the pipeline of Unreal and how I'm not sure if I should use this analogy, but now I've said it. There's almost like there's the sort of the parasite and the host. Like the Unreal is this thing that's kind of like that's like inside all of these different systems, like in Pixeltope, in Zero Density, in Chiron, in Viz, and how that works, and how that and the way you design for Unreal, and like we're kind of trying to use Unreal as natively as we possibly can. And you look at like Chiron systems is very kind of native, but then you've got your Zero Densities and your Pixeltopes that have kind of like buried it a bit more. I don't know which one of those is right, but it has massive implications to how you build virtual studios.
Yeah.
Anybody from any of those companies that just got name dropped have an opinion?
I think we are the only one that weren't mentioned.
I did.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I think you only missed out, Biz.
No, so just,
I said Viz.
No, so just one comment about Epic and Vanilla and Real, and keep in mind that broadcast is just not what they interested in. Yeah. Let's be real, right? Let's just be real. I mean, if it's in any way, shape, or form beneficial for Fortnite, awesome. If it's beneficial for Rocket League, awesome. If it's not, you're last in the queue. And I think this is the main problem that you mentioned, because every vendor implements Unreal in a different way. You have endless amount of tools. You have endless amount of hookups for integration with different systems. It's pretty much like, you can order all the different parts to build a Volvo in your own backyard, but no one can guarantee that it would actually work. And I think, that's pretty much where, the vendor bingo kicks in, because that's what we are trying to figure out. How do we package it in a way that would actually work in a broadcast environment? Otherwise, it's good luck.
It felt, Gideon, that there was a small window where they were interested.
Yes, it did, didn't it? It's a crazy business model. It's a crazy business model, isn't it? That you would go, one of your key tools, and they wouldn't even talk to you. You couldn't even get feedback from them or help or support.
Anybody else in the audience got a question before I move on to my next one? Yes, give me 1 second while I do my Jerry Springer thing. Oh no, Rooks has got there first.
So mine's a really simple question. So how much easier is it than, say, 6 years ago?
Wowzers.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, we're then going into the camera tracking world and all that.
That's the next on my list, John. So you might as well go for it.
All of that. So I would say it is. Yes, it's definitely better
for sure.
I think the challenges are still there, but I think the whole ecosystem is. But I don't know what everyone else thinks, and I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of work that goes into the tracking. There absolutely is, and camera tracking, but it feels from what it used to be, that was the biggest headache. I know we weren't doing maybe LED and XR and all of that, but even just the AR in a physical space with the camera tracking and everything was felt a nightmare 6-7 years ago, I would say. So on that side of it, yes, the ecosystem of it all has improved.
But so, I think that's completely correct. I mean, we used to, in a previous life at NEP, we dreamed that we would make this stuff work. But I mean, how close then is it to maturity? So, at what point does it become something that can be deployed by smaller broadcasters, by smaller teams across that broadcast space, or even, as I'm sat here with my diversified T-shirt on, across like a corporate space where people can use it?
I think just as an example of what I'm being asked for at the moment is just we're talking a lot more about actually not potentially broadcast studios but digital content spaces, small studios, and actually being able to kind of change the dynamic of a small space. And literally what they are talking there is and I know you have to have a creative behind it. Your team will have to create design around it, but that is literally about someone switching it on, going in with one camera and one person, and it working. That's the kind of thing that I'm being asked about a lot more now, and looking at things from a digital world.
Exactly the same, yeah.
I would 100% agree. I think there's two answers to the question. Like, just works these days, which is great technically, like physically. And so you're not designing around a camera shake or something weird that you can't work. But like, there's a lot more software engineering. We work so hard on software engineering in the background, so that it's shifted the problem. It's like the rest of the world, right? It's all now software. But like, I completely agree with Alex and John. We're looking at small digital spaces. But the great thing is, we're looking at really agile solutions now, like super agile kind of virtual stuff with like PTZs and like not tracked studios. But you can take these really complex models that we're building for tier 1 sports and just drop them on a much less complicated technically system that can be run by one person, and it still looks beautiful. There's challenges in terms of like the cameras you can use and that sort of thing, but like that's really exciting to me, because now you can do that exact thing. We can give to our digital team, we can give them our Studio 4, and the viewers squint a bit, you wouldn't notice.
Have I answered your question? Yes, Rupert. Hang on, just 1 second.
How much time are you guys putting into working with the universities like Royal Holloway and the National Film School to get people that you're going to need to drive this further forward? I'm aware that the age in this room is quite high. Presumably you need young and sort of native digital people to kind of really get the best out of this technology. Is that something you guys are actively developing?
100%. I mean, obviously we're in Media City, Salford, so we're trying to work with Salford Uni because they've obviously got various courses in this world, whether it's the gaming engine world and in terms of design, and obviously they've got the tech. They've got their own green screen studio, and which we helped with a little bit as well. So we're trying to definitely engage from that side of it, because I suppose that's the other thing in broadcast is that we're all using the gaming engine for the creative element, but that sort of knowledge in the broadcast world, obviously it's got better, but it generally isn't there. It's small. So I think definitely working with the universities, we're trying to do more with that. Yes.
Okay, I would like to add some comment on these questions. First of all, the ease of usage. Ease of usage also depends on what you want to produce. So especially for the small TV channels or corporates, the expectations are lower. So they will not be coming to these levels, so because they are always pushing the boundaries and the limits. And that is why already they can start to use it. And I will link to this question to the universities. I feel that the biggest gap is the skill in the market and the people who can use this system. Yes, Unreal is a big community, but they are not in broadcast industry. For that, we started a special program which is called Open Studio program. So anyone who want to learn the system can apply to this program and get the licenses and start using all the features, all the things. And for the universities, we again have special programs to support them, because one of our role is to increase the people and the skills in the market for this virtual production and broadcast graphics business.
Thank you. We're coming to the close. I want to end by looking forward, if that's okay. I'm going to ask each of our panellists a two-part question. You can answer either or both parts of it. The title of this is about exploring creative possibilities. So where does this go next? And or, if we do this event again next year, what are we going to be talking about? Let's start with Alex. I could tell you were slumping in your chair to hide.
I was just slinking down. I think we said this last year. I need more hardware power. Yeah. I am always hitting the ceiling. I'm always being told we can't do that. You haven't got enough memory. You need more GPUs. So yeah, that's my biggest problem, and something that needs to be addressed quickly, please. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about next year. It'll probably be about the BBC studio from the World Cup.
Yavuz, what do you think we're going to be talking about next year, and where does this all go? Where does virtual AR, XR, where's it going next?
What we say is, for the virtual production, limit is your imagination. So you can do a lot of things. Of course, this should be supported by the technology. And already, Unreal is always releasing something. Lumen, Nanite, things are coming and coming. And at the same time, AI is coming. There are a lot of data sources, a lot of things that you can do with it. So, good luck.
Thank you.
Go on, John, your turn.
Not to sound boring, but I'm just going to go back to the point we made before. It's creating these spaces from a more kind of digital perspective and making it easy, because I know that is just, we all know. I mean, that's, BBC's got a very big digital first strategy, and that is going to be a huge driver for us. And it's how we can use these technologies to be more efficient and work in that area, not just obviously for the big shiny broadcast studios. So and then just one other little one, just going on to your point, just not hearing the word optimization on scenes. If that can all be kind of reduced
and go away,
go away. That would be a big help as well. Yeah.
So I try and sort of bring it all together a bit, because I think I agree with everything that's been said. Like there's definitely more digital spaces. There's less hardware challenges. There's more creative expressions of it, and I think, and going back to one of your favourite points, Will, interoperability, like the ability, like we're really starting to kind of try and work out how we can kind of use the models that we build, use the technology we build, and kind of like switch between the different uses of it, so that to the viewer, doesn't matter where you interact with Sky Sports, you're getting this kind of amazing creative technical expression. So bringing all those things into one space.
Fabulous, a great way to end. I'm sure the guys are going to hang around for drinks. If you've got questions you haven't been able to ask, I'm sure they'll be around to answer them. But could you just join me in thanking the panel for their time?